All right. Here we go back up. No fish. This way, Bubs. Good luck. That's it. No sliding off the mountain, all right? Good girl. Let's go. Hey, wait for me. Don't slide off of there. Me either. Okay, hold on, wait. Hold on. Okay, let's go. Okay, hold on. Keep going. Keep going. Hold on, wait for me. Shit. Wait for me. Good girl. Good girl. Going. This way. This way, Bubs. This way. That's it. Holy shit. Straight up the whole way. Old Dad's huffing puffing. Come on, boy, let's go this way. This way. Come on. This way, come on.
Holy man, it is freaking cold out. Had to put on the parka. And of course I forgot to leave the heat on low in this room overnight. Oh well, pouring rain, chilly out, snows in the hills. And I don't know if you caught yesterday's video or not, but I started to listen to it this morning kind of quick while having my coffee, and I couldn't stop listening even though I was in it. Crazy. Yeah, Tony's a solid dude. Good guy. I noticed I was listening to the part where he was sharing what he experienced in the woods, and you could see the electricity picking up in his demeanor as he's recalling that experience, right? You notice that? Compared to all the other, talking about all his great hunting experiences and everything, and then when that topic came up and he started reliving it, you can see that energy change in him too while he was recalling it. Anyway, one quick mention. The other day I mentioned this on video, but I don't even know if I mentioned if it came through on the video that I lost or not from being in the woods. But I was talking about what I wanted to hopefully share with everyone and see if possibly you could get this retort or request out and make it somewhat mainstreamish in a way. Is when somebody says, some kind of whatever, a video or a footprint's been submitted, and people instantly go, oh, it's been debunked, it's faked. Which is 100% of the time, right? Especially with like the Patterson-Gimlin film, or apparently that thermal video's been debunked. But just a simple request to anybody, especially that Patterson-Gimlin film, when people say it's a fake, it's faked, it's hoaxed, it's been debunked, then someone should be able to very easily and quickly make a copy, right? Produce the exact same video or photograph on their own. Then it's done deal. Instead of just knee-jerking, it's all fake, it's been proved as a hoax. Okay, we'll just do it again then. Simple request, it should be easy, especially because some other humans faked it, so maybe find whoever it is, or maybe you can duplicate it. Right? It's almost like the other side of the coin when people say, "Show me proof." Okay? Show me how to make that video of, say, the Patterson-Gimlin film, or even a thermal, identical, and I mean exactly, or even better. Show us. Make a video on it. You can probably get a gazillion hits on it. Make a video and show us how to duplicate all of the videos, all of the footprints with dermal ridges in them. Just show us how to duplicate that, okay? It's just so we know. It should be very easy, right? Isn't that a great reply? It's innocent, it's honest, it's quick and easy, just like it's quick and easy for people to say, oh, it's been debunked. It's fake. Oh, okay. Duplicate it. Just take us through it. Right. Now, what do we got here? We haven't heard from the late, great Bobby Short in a little while. Whoops, apologies to Bobby. We never, ever forget her. Just got a lot on her plate, right? Now, listen to this. This is titled, in her book, Unprovoked Physical Assault. Quote, my wife and I have lived at one time in McIntosh County, Oklahoma, and adventure dogs chewing on her bone down there. For nearly 33 years, we routinely walk an old dirt patch every morning through a densely wooded area. Sometimes, even an evening, even an evening walk, frog in the throat. Sometimes, even an evening walk, we have seen all manner of wildlife, but did not know hairy men were in these parts. The idea of Bigfoot was something my wife knows. She is Creek/Checotah. Checotah. Hold on. A morning came when the wife wasn't up to par and didn't want to go out and walk. I put on my jacket and went off without her. I finally felt I had enough, and I was feeling fatigued, and I turned around to head back to the house. And there in the morning mist, and clearly blocking the narrow path, stood a hair-covered, man-shaped figure. Okay, now I believe in Bigfoot. I'm a retired Marine, but I never felt terror like I did at that moment. No weapon, nowhere to turn, no options. I froze and stared. And no exaggeration, this thing was 8 feet tall, maybe 4 feet wide across his shoulders. And it commenced walking towards me. Thinking back, it was more like marching towards me because it hiked its knees upwards with each step and stamped down its foot. I became irrational. I couldn't think of a way out or around the thing. Then, his hugeness picked up momentum, coming straight for me. Honestly, at that moment, I talked to God. Seriously. It was a, quote, come to Jesus, end quote, moment. I felt a kind of a warmth on my cold right thigh, and I'm not ashamed to admit I involuntarily pissed my pants at seeing it come at me, Bobby. And then I stumbled backwards a step or two and nearly fell, but needed to see where to run. Not that I thought I could outrun it. By then it was almost on top of me. Dust behind him was flying. And I thought, F, I'm a dead man. I don't know why I did this, but in that split second I dropped to the ground and curled up in a tight fetal position, like you would if a bear was on top of you. Each step the Bigfoot took made the ground move. He kept coming and stepped over me with a huge amount of force into the ground, narrowly missing my face. It was that close. At the same time, he must have grabbed a hold of the back of my windbreaker because he jerked me off the ground. And now I'm flying through the air. And no exaggeration here, I flew a good 20 feet, landed at the base of a tree in the forest litter. I curled up again, afraid to move, and this creature let out a primal scream that was so horrifying that it made my whole body quiver. What the hell did I do to cause that wrath of this thing, this wild thing? I don't know, but this attack was not provoked. And if they ever watched us, as you suggest, then the wife and I must have been familiar to him. This was, however, the first time I went alone for a walk, and no 52-year-old man ran home faster than I did that day. And now look, I don't want to argue the point, but this was no bluff charge. This dude was seriously taking care of business. Reliving that day for you made me sweat profusely. My armpits are wet. His color was reddish-brown, and I do not wish to be known or talk about it again, and I don't want organizations or the media coming here like I read about. Phil B., September 21st, 2011. Whoa. Definitely sounds like he's trying to get him out of the way, doesn't it? Sounds like you did a pretty easy job of it, too. How would that ruin your frickin' life? Really? Your average person, right? Wow. And here's another one. Physical attack by Sasquatch. From Bobby's book. One of Bigfoot researchers' best collector of old Bigfoot-related articles is Scott McLean of Pacific Palisades, California. Scott has been exceedingly generous with members of this field with the articles in his extensive collection. I mention this particular old account because the history of Bigfoot attacking civilized man, though unprovoked, has always been there. In this newspaper article, a Sasquatch attacks a man and his daughter, literally in a physical way. We sometimes forget the Sasquatch is, after all, a wild living being with no specific rules for living that we know about. Using caution around them is smart. Published in the Hillsdale Standard, Hillsdale, Michigan, on Tuesday, January 26, 1869, and it reads, quote, "The city of Gallipolis, Ohio, is excited over a wild man who is reported to haunt the woods near that city. He goes naked, is covered with hair, is gigantic in height, and his eyes stare from the sockets. He attacked a horse carriage containing a man and a daughter a few days ago. He's said to have bounded at the father, catching him in a vice grip and hurling him upon the earth, falling upon him and endeavoring to bite and scratch him like a wild animal. The struggle was long and fearful, rolling and wallowing in the deep mud, half suffocated, sometimes beneath his adversary, whose burning and maniac eyes glared into his own with murderous and savage intensity. Just as he was about to become exhausted from exertions, the daughter, taking courage at the imminent danger of her father, snatched up a rock and, hurling it at the head of her father's would-be murderer, was fortunate enough to put an end to the struggle by striking him somewhere about the ear." Holy shit. Hold on a minute. The creature was not stunned. Hold on. Sticky pages. But, feeling unequal to further exertions, slowly got up and retired into a neighboring group of trees that skirted the road. End quote. Bobby says, some may rationalize that this article is 144 years old, but the prior report from McIntosh County, Oklahoma was very recent, 2011. Apparently, we just never know what the attitude and demeanor of a Sasquatch will be. It is for this reason that I am often hard-pressed to believe stories from habituators and other long-term interactors. In light of the many statements from witnesses that include aggression, or perceived aggression in the data, it's hard to accept that the Sasquatch is totally a benevolent being. There you go. So, our worst nightmares are quite possible, right? And there's lots on stealing food. Rock thrown, lineman quits job. Okay, let's hear about this guy quitting a job. David Benier had an interesting conversation with a neighbor friend. Oh, sorry, the title is Rock Thrown, Lineman Quits Job. David Benier had an interesting conversation with a neighbor friend while the fellow was cleaning fish near his front porch. Benier's friend told him that a guy that he worked with quit his full-time job yesterday because of what happened to him on the job. With a few edits to shorten up the incident, here is Benier's story, including the hairy man's behavior. Quote, hairy man. This guy works for the electric company here in Little Rock, and has for 12 years. He was on a call Tuesday night about some power lines that were on the fritz west of town just before you get to the Saline County line near Perrin, Arkansas. He arrived around 9 p.m. and was in the process of loading up a bucket when a large rock landed near his truck that was parked off the side of the road. Within a minute or so, another rock, larger than the first, hit and rolled almost to his feet. He didn't know what the hell to think. But as he was headed toward his truck, out of the tree line stepped a Sasquatch, just staring at him from about 150 feet. He shined his light in the area from where he thought the rocks came from, and he heard rustling in the trees just before the creature stepped out. He immediately hurried to his truck and took off. This was about all the info he gave, other than he was terrified, and in his fright told... What's going on? Something out there? Hold on a minute. I'll open up the curtain for a sec. Just hold on. This is about all the info he gave, other than he was terrified, and in his fright told his supervisor that he quit because he could not handle going out on night calls anymore. This guy also said to Sam, quote, "You'd be surprised how many of these Bigfoots are seen around here that you've never heard about." D. Benier, 2005. Lots of people quit their jobs from what they experienced. Hold on a sec. All right, my child is outside playing. Hopefully she doesn't start barking her face off, doing her job, but... Now, here's another title, which catches my eye because I'll add to it by the time I'm done, I hope. I remember to. Sasquatch brandishing a club. Kip Derringer was scanning old Dayton newspaper articles in the Columbia Chronicle for February 1st, 1902, and ran across a Bigfoot story while looking for something else, and here it is. Titled, "Idaho has a boogeyman. 8 feet high, carries a club, and yells like a Comanche." Salt Lake, Utah, January 27th, 1902. According to the Pocatello, Idaho correspondent at the Deseret News, the residents of the little town of Chesterfield, located in an isolated portion of Bannock County, Idaho, are greatly excited over the appearance in that vicinity of an 8-foot hair-covered human monster. Human! He was first seen on January 14th when he appeared among the party of a young people who were skating on the Point Neuf River near John Gooch's ranch. The creature showed fight, and flourishing a large club and uttering a series of yells, started to attack the skaters, who managed to reach their wagons and got away in safety. Measurements of the tracks showed the creature's feet to be 22 inches long and 7 inches broad. 7 inches broad, with the imprint of only 4 toes. Stockmen report having seen similar tracks along the range west of the river. The people in the neighborhood, feeling unsafe while the creature is at large, have sent 20 men on its trail to effect its capture. Bracket, the Columbia Chronicle, Ohio, end bracket. And then Bobby goes on to say, "Big hairy things brandishing clubs is a behavior recorded as far back as the 1860s Civil War era, when the New York Tribune published a story about a hairy thing carrying not only a club but a rabbit. Bloodhounds refused to track the hairy thing. The old stories of Sasquatches with clubs seems lost to research now. We don't hear but a few reports of that kind anymore. A 1900 sighting occurred at Huntsville, a small town halfway between Waitsburg and Dayton, Washington State. A lone fir tree still stands alongside the highway where the house of the family stood for many years. In that report, a girl went out back to tend the family garden when she saw a Bigfoot at the garden gate brandishing a club, not over 100 feet distant. She turned and bolted back indoors, the Bigfoot likewise scampering off into the nearby foothills of the Blue Mountains. Vance Orchard. The club thing, yeah. I'm pretty sure John Bendernagel, he reported one. Somebody seen one with a club and some ducks in its hand on the beach on the inside of Vancouver Island, just over the hump from where I am, the hump called the Hill, between this side and that side of the island. And also, I remember, it's funny how sometimes I remember accounts vividly that people shared somewhere. I think probably because it was close to home for me. And I remember, I think it was a comment somewhere a long time ago. It could have been an email. And the guy did leave his name, and he was a wood poacher, which goes on, obviously, commonly, right? There's big money in stealing wood, especially cedar. And all he said was, he said that he was around the Bamfield area. That's where I keep my boat. That's where I get all those huge Roosevelt elk on my trail cameras. And that's not too far from where I, fish at times. And he said that he was way up the end of an old deactivated logging road, where he said that he dumped a great big old ancient cedar tree. And I guess he went back up there to start bucking the thing up, doing whatever he's doing. And he said he saw a massive human-like thing standing there at the edge of the timber, I think, and it had a big club in his hand, standing there staring at him. Whoa. Right? Club. And the four-toe thing, it's like my buddy Shane, remember we sat on his cabin porch talking about this shit, and he came across 20-something inch long print four toes. Scared the shit out of them, and they smelt it another time, apparently, 7. Anyway, here's an odd title. Sasquatch flags down logging truck. Logging roads are a significant feature of forest landscapes of British Columbia and Alberta, Canada. I was told by Jim Cheng that there were well over 80,000 kilometers of such roads in British Columbia alone that provide access to forests for timber harvesting. In my conversations with Cheng, formerly a resident of Blaine, Washington, now living in San Diego, he told me a story about a BC log hauler. A fellow told Cheng that a Sasquatch blocked the narrow road when he was negotiating a hairpin turnaround with a full load on board. In fact, Cheng, a truck driver himself, said the man was behind the wheel of a 2007 Kenworth T800 500 horsepower Caterpillar engine and had to bring his load to a full stop in order to not hit the giant who stood directly in front of his radiator. What was so unusual was the height the driver described. He said it was taller than the cab of his truck. So this particular Sasquatch, a male, not only was over 9 or 10 feet tall, but he waved his arms like he was trying to fly. The driver sat stunned, waiting for whatever was to come next. He told Cheng, the 2 very small copies of the big guy, twins, came out of the forest, walked the big fellow. He picked up both of them, the little ones, and went off into the forest on the other side of the road. Cheng wasn't sure he believed the fellow until the man next to him set down his beer and declared he was the driver in the truck behind him. And the story was true. James R. Cheng, 2007. The Cheng log hauler story reminds me of a story that occurred in the early 1960s where Canadian John Bringsley spoke with 2 men from the Doukhobor settlement who were logging up Kokanee Glacier Road near Nelson, BC. Both of these men witnessed a Sasquatch dumping logs off a logging truck. Neither man would give their name. Whoa, interesting. That kind of reminds me of that story a while back, that Justin Smedja. I think that was how you pronounce his last name, that guy from Washington State? Washington, Oregon. And he allegedly was out hunting somewhere. It was Buddy, and one was standing there waving his arms at him. He shot it. And I think he shot the young one too or something. But then all of a sudden he changed his story. But what I heard through the solid grapevine was that he changed his story only because the Fish and Wildlife was really coming down on him for some kind of apparent not supposed to be hunting wherever he was, or something went down there that he could incriminate himself with some sort of poaching charges, and they really hammered into him and he changed his story. But I think I'm confident that he did go back there and he did get flush from it, and Melba got a hold of it. And I think that was the sample where she told us that she was expecting some kind of a murder charges or something to be coming up because of what she had in possession at that time. Crazy. Standing there waving their arms at a human being. Doesn't happen that often, but it's been noted. Logging Camp Thief is the title of this next one in Bobby Short's book. And she says, I vividly remember being told a story back in the late 90s by Dr. Henner Fahrenbach that took place in Marion County, Oregon. At the time, I believe the story was already 20 years old, and the young girl telling the story was now an adult.
The account itself is terribly remarkable, but the behavior of the Sasquatch stayed with me all these years. It was about a young girl who had been taken by her father to his workplace, which was a logging camp near Detroit Lake. And during the night she was awakened by a noise and opened the door to the cabin to find this female creature standing in front of an open cooler with a 20-pound piece of meat tucked neatly under her arm. After exchanging lengthy glances, the young girl screamed, arousing the men, at which point the slick, opportunistic Sasquatch left with the meat. The witness described the Sasquatch as 6.5 feet tall, and it left 14-inch tracks. W.H. Fahrenbach. Regarding the behavior, Dr. Fahrenbach wrote, quote, although the cooler contained a variety of vegetables and fruits, the Sasquatch selected and kept the meat only. The door to the cooler had been opened from normal fashion by the handle rather than torn off bare fashion. The relaxed response of the Sasquatch to the girl brings up the question of whether a Sasquatch recognizes a human female as such and responds in a different fashion to her, perhaps as a function of the sex alone or different body language conveyed by women or children for that matter. I explored this. Hold on. I explored this possibility by way of John Green's records. We segregated the sightings into male and female human observers, singles, couples, and groups, and indexed them against the length of their encounters. The time difference between male and female encounters with the Sasquatch did not differ. On the other hand, it may not mean very much, because Green mentioned that his database did not record who first broke off the encounter, the Sasquatch or the witness. Hence, if there is a systematic difference in the readiness with which human observers, male or female, break off the meeting, then it would tell us nothing about Sasquatch behavior, only about that of the observers. W. Henner Fahrenbach, 1997. And Bobby went on to say, there are any number of stealing stuff stories told by surprised witnesses of henhouse break-ins, eggs and chickens being stolen. Often the Sasquatch will snap the neck of a chicken to keep them from squawking. Derek Jacobson remembered his father talking about seeing a large, dark Sasquatch in the barn that lobbed a pitchfork at one of the barn owls nesting in the loft. What? Read that sentence again. Derek Jacobson remembered his father talking about seeing a large, dark Sasquatch in the barn that lobbed a pitchfork at one of the barn owls nesting in the loft. Wow. Debbie Grayson wrote in 1995 to say that they often saw Bigfoot people carrying off an armload of apples from the orchard next to theirs. Mike Dardanos recorded a produce grower in the San Joaquin Valley of California saying several rows of onions were uprooted and missing from his acreage. And over time, there have been reports of calves missing, and one report from Georgia of a Sasquatch burglar who routinely ran off with pigs. Stranger stories filter in. Stealing behaviors are common. So common that I wonder about the many that go unreported. Wow. You realize look at how much information's in this sucker. Just a couple, right? Just a few. What? Bartering. Okay, hold on. I gotta read this. Every single title catches your attention. This is titled Bartering. In 1946, I was sitting on the porch of my hotel after supper, leafing through some old magazines, when in walked a character that looked much like some pictures of Buffalo Bill I've seen, only much older. He seemed to be around 100 years old. His shoulder-length hair was snow white. He wore an Indian-made fringed buckskin jacket, and having nothing better to do, I listened in on the conversation, which soon brought out the fact that the oldster had been the first white settler in the area and still lived in a cabin some distance from the village. The talk soon got around to the Sasquatch giants, and I became interested when the old boy blandly asserted that the stories were true and that he had seen many Indians over 8 feet tall when he first moved up the lake some 60 years ago, roughly 1886. And he said, quote, "They were peaceful then," end quote, he said. There was one big fellow in particular who used to come to trade with me. He never said anything. He just gave me the creeps. The way he would suddenly appear, out of the bush with a deer on his shoulder. The deer was always killed with an arrow. He would put the deer down on the grass before my cabin and would just stand there looking at me. I would go in my cabin and come out with a bag of salt, which is what he wanted. Once I offered him smoked salmon and trout, but he only shook his head and grunted and slapped his belly to show that he had all the fish he wanted. I saw this big guy kill a cougar with a club. He broke off a tree. How did that happen, I asked. The oldster continued. I was out in my canoe fishing just in front of my cabin when a cougar, this area is full of them, attacked my dogs, and they ran yelping to a little wharf I had built with the cougar hot after them. The dogs kept right on going and hit the water, which was the best thing they could have done. The cougar was perched on the wharf, spitting and snarling at the dogs, when this big Sasquatch came out of the bush with a club and killed the cougar like it was a pussycat. It almost wrecked my wharf, too, because his first swipe missed and broke the planks on the wharf. The second time, he didn't miss. What had become of these big Indians, I asked. Oh, this is a crazy one, isn't it? Hold on. Why, they just went up north when the loggers came in, the fellow explained. How far north? If I knew them, they went far enough so they wouldn't be bothered too much, the old boy said. Oygens Johnson. Holy shit. Huh. And I wonder if those people were wiped out. You never know, right? Or maybe there's a few left. Is it the same as what we still see today? I don't know. Wow. So many. This one's titled Beer Bottle Thrown. In another instance, a couple necking in their parked car by a secluded pond were surprised when out of the darkness something or someone hurled a beer bottle at their vehicle. They were 10 miles off the beaten path when this occurred in the pitch black of night and had pulled off on an old frontage road that led to a logging road. The informant told one of the Akron's officers, quote, "Bears don't throw beer bottles, do they?" End quote. Many were the stories Captain Akron collected. His doting wife, Marie, died in February 2010. Captain Akron followed her 2 months later. I miss having his stories and his enthusiasm. Akron's last days were in Post Falls, Idaho. It was there he gave me one last story. This time it was just a scream, but beyond that, it demonstrates how the Sasquatch is reported to crash and make crunching noises as they parallel people walking logging roads and hiking trails. And here's that last report. Bonner's Ferry, nestled along the banks of the beautifully scenic Kootenai River in North Idaho, fall duck hunting season 1987. Credible businessman recollects an incident that happened en route to his favorite duck hunting pond with a cousin and 2 others. Quote, "That morning my cousin Steve and I were heading south towards the duck blind at our usual duck hunting pond site near Bonner's Ferry, Idaho. Bonner's Ferry is located in the panhandle of Idaho near the Canadian border. There were 4 of us, 2 already waiting at the pond. My cousin and I left the parked car alongside the logging road and began walking towards the pond. It was approximately 6:15 a.m. in the stillness of the morning as we walked along the logging road towards the duck blind. We heard trees snapping about 50 yards away from us, some kind of movement in the timber. I didn't think much about it at the time, and being anxious to get back to the duck blind and all, I thought it was an elk or a deer perhaps. Thinking back, that didn't make sense. As the morning progressed, I began running short of shells, and decided to walk back to the truck to get another box of shells, which were left there. I was younger, and a poor shot back then. I left the group and backtracked from the pond to the logging road, where my truck was parked. It was 9:30 a.m. Walking back along the road, my shotgun dangling through my arm, I heard that same breaking of branches moving to the side of me, going in the same direction. branches breaking and obvious movement in the timber, the thick timber, and undergrowth. I stopped, it stopped. This time I thought it might have been a bear, but most likely elk. But what was happening didn't fit the known behavior of either animal, I thought. Nearing the car, I stopped again, looked in the direction of the noise, and hearing branches breaking again, I raised my shotgun. Hell, I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was out of shells. As suddenly as I raised my shotgun, I heard this terrible scream. It sounded like a woman screaming, but deeper-throated, guttural pitched sound around 50 yards away. It's difficult to describe something you've never heard before, and I've never heard anything like it. It was a loud, long, screaming tone that echoed through the trees. I cannot describe the terror I felt. I ran to the truck and locked myself inside, completely shaken. It was some time before I recovered. I know elk and deer and bear sounds very well, and it didn't fit. Back at the pond, they heard it too. I wish someone would send me a recording of Bigfoot so that I might do a comparison. While the years have passed, it is a sound I will never forget. And my home is in Hayden Lake, Idaho. I prefer my name withheld except to researchers or to someone with sound recordings of Bigfoot. Being computer illiterate, I'm not online. The sounds can be mailed to my grandfather in Post Falls. The Idaho Daily Bee reported a set of Sasquatch-like tracks found by Bonnie Thompson on June 21, 2012 in Bonner County, Idaho. The finder of the tracks was fishing with friends in the Trussell Creek drainage when she located the large footprint. It was photographed, cast, and plastered, measured 15.5 inches long by 8 inches at the toes and 4.5 inches wide at the heel. Interestingly, one of the casts had 3 prominent bulbous protrusions that resembled toes, and the other side protrusion toward the heel of the foot. Miss Thompson said the tracks resembled those cast by the late Grover S. Krantz, formerly with the University of Washington at Pullman. She said the professor at Idaho State University dismissed her tracks as an overlapping elk. That's that other doctor that I'm not a fan of said that. But do elk leave a bipedal tightrope trail of 15.5-inch tracks? Right? Little adventure dog's outside letting the neighborhood know she's watching them all. A calf thrown. In Giles County, Tennessee, a shocked farmer watched as a Bigfoot killed one of his calves by swinging it by its hind legs and throwing it to the ground. Ouch. Throwing dogs. I remember reading a lengthy report out of the unincorporated town of Calverton, Maryland. A NASA engineer told the Prince George County Police Department that while he was driving to work early one morning at the Goddard Space Flight Center, he saw a huge brown hair-covered Bigfoot lumbering along the I-95 in the early morning fog. What was unusual about his observation was that a domestic dog was chasing it from behind. Apparently annoyed, the Bigfoot reached down, picked up the dog, and threw it from the road, and then disappeared into the woodland trees. This happened near Powder Road Mill Overpass and I-95 in March of '77. Another short one. Maybe 2 short ones. 2 short ones, okay? 2 more. Tractor upended. This was an interesting report to contemplate. The wife of a corn farmer in Iowa wrote Bigfoot counters to say that something very strange occurred on their farm property. She described a day when her husband finished dragging a 17-acre field section with his 1989 45-horsepower John Deere 2155, busting up dirt clods. That evening, he pulled the tractor up to the barn with the intent to service it the next day. Early the next morning, the farmer came excitedly back into the house and told his wife something had upended the tractor. Literally turned the heavy machinery over, laying on its side. There were 17-inch humanoid footprints all around the tractor leading through one of the freshly plowed fields and into the woods behind the south section. The tracks appeared to wander aimlessly in circles around the field. They wrote asking if a Bigfoot could have possibly done this. What would you tell them? Hideous creatures pelt couple with gravel. A couple from Forks, Washington went for a sunset stroll early one evening after a large family dinner in the year 1950 and returned to tell the family that they were pelted with gravel from a dirt road area in the Olympics. They described their terror as two huge, hideous creatures walked out onto the road way in front of them and began heaving handfuls of small pebble-like gravel in their direction. Stunned, neither one of them remembers how they got back to their vehicle, a 1948 Plymouth Woody station wagon parked about 75 yards up the road. They related the terror they felt being chased by these strange beings. The word hideous was used often in the retelling of this story. Mike and I interviewed both of them separately and independent of each other, and they said they didn't believe in Bigfoot prior to this event. Mike Dardanos, 1996. There you go. Good to hear from Bobby again, isn't it? Endless. Endless, endless. It's funny, little trivia here. Not that I give a flying shit, but a good friend of mine, good friend of all of us here, who had been keeping me informed of that thermal video, said that one time he was somewhere and he was trying to relay his experience to that guy. If you Googled his name, he comes up as a TV personality. That just makes me laugh. And I think his name is like Cliff Bear-Assman or something like that. Anyway, I guess this Cliff dude looked our friend in the eye and said, "They're nothing special. They're just an animal." And then walked away from him. Didn't want to hear anything about his story. So, wonder what team that guy's on, right? I'm pretty convinced that guy's on the keep him going in circles team, right? So anything that comes from that camp doesn't even make it to my eyeballs and goes in one ear and out the other for quite some time now. But anyway, moving along. Who we got here? We have an email titled Unexpected Orb. Dear Steve, I've written to you before. My family and I enjoy your videos and appreciate all that you do. Feel free to share my name. My name is Lucy Cohen. I'm 24 years old and I live near Loch Lomond. I've been at a friend's house in Prestwick, near Moncton, recording music with my band, and left around midnight, headed back towards Glasgow. And about 15 to 25 minutes into the drive, something caught my eye. In the middle of the road, floating, probably around 3 to 4 feet off the ground, was a small, bluish/white orb, not much bigger than a ping pong ball or a miniature tennis ball, from our perspective. I slowed the car right down to try better to see what I was looking at. And before I could open up my mouth to ask if anyone else could see it, my boyfriend turned to me and asked, "What is that?" And I immediately replied, "Oh my God, that's an orb." The orb was slowly moving from the middle of the road, floating in a controlled manner. My boyfriend described it as moving unnaturally but smoothly. It then began floating up and into the tree line, and had completely vanished when I drove past where it had just been seconds prior. We then turned to our friend who was sat in the back seat to ask if he saw it too, but unfortunately he was looking a different direction. Although this experience was over in about 2 minutes and saw no further abnormalities, the rest of the drive. We kept our eyes peeled the whole way, especially as the particular area is known to have had many Dogman sightings. Really? Ugh. Thank you for taking your time to read my story, Steve. I hope you and your family are well. Thanks, Lucy Cohen. I hope you and your family are well too, Lucy, and I appreciate you sending that email in to us. The lights, the balls of light. The balls of light. So common. All right, here's one titled Title read, "Pictures from my game trail camera and my phone. Clear Hills, Alberta." Hello, Stephen Howdhunt family. This is Barry Ferguson from Grimshaw, Alberta. Last spring, my brother and I decided to put out 4 game trail cameras east of our reserve in the Clear Hills. And I caught some crazy photos. And my walk into the mass gravesite on the reservation. On one of the game trail photos, you can see a stick being thrown at an elk. Then the next picture, the elk is standing next to the camera. Then something brown jumping from a tree. Then the back of a black hairy head and giant shoulders. Then the glowing profile of a face there are 2, one above the other. Then I got a photo of a white being with a giant wolf creature standing next to it. What? Then a black hairy being on all 4s that threw 2 2-foot boulders at me and landed in the creek. Please share with everyone, Steve. Thanks for all you do. All right, well, I'm going to have to do a little search on here because I've only got this one email in here and with one photo. Weird. That's definitely a weird one, but man, whatever that is, it sure looks like a side profile of a chin, mouth, upper lip, and nose, and especially that longer distance between the bottom of the nose and the bottom of the upper lip, if that is what it is. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. It wasn't there. Shared. I guess I'm going to have to do a little search and see what else you sent in the inbox. I got to save this photo to make sure you guys get to see it here. All right, there you go. Well, I'll definitely do a little search. I'm not online here right now at all. And I got this phone off because I'm getting texts and shit while I'm recording, and I can't stand that. Oh, I can't save that because the internet's off. Damn it. Hold on a minute. All right, so this next email is titled My Story. And right away it has a download attachment on the top. So I turn my phone on, and let's hear it. Hello, sir. My name is Clayton McGrew. I've had many jobs. I was a ranch hand, a wrangler, a mechanic, and now I'm a carpenter. I'm 24 years old. I live in Willits, California, and have been a very avid outdoorsman for roughly half my life. I've harvested several deer, bears, and birds from California and other states. I know what I'm looking at, and this was something new. It has rattled me to my core. I still hunt, although I have a mini panic attack whenever I'm caught alone in the area where the second incident occurred. I won't even drive that highway alone. The only people that believe me are the ones that are here with me. The only people that believe me are the ones that were with me. Nobody but us believes us. We've tried and lost friends because of it, and I hope the audio format helps. It's a bit long. Feel free to use the audio if it's any good. Use my name if you wish, but I would prefer not to use the others. I don't know how they feel about sharing in such a big way. Anyway, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you for your time. Sincerely, Clayton McGrew. All right, so I click on the download attachment. Then it goes to this. Download to your device, and unfortunately it says expired. Damn it. So, and I think I would really like to hear from this young man who will definitely be employed all of his life with all those feathers in his cap. Good for you, man. Email this guy. Email him. All right. And we'll see if, because this is an older email too. I don't know if Clayton, if you're still here or not, but I'm about to email you pretty quick here and see if you might have that recording still, and maybe possibly even a more detailed description of what went down, because you didn't give it. No big deal. I guess maybe the recording is possibly the easily understandable description of what went down. We'll see. But I'll definitely email you back. I'll open up my inbox here again and do a search for your name. All that just, it takes a lot of time, you guys. It takes a lot of time. Like, it takes time just for me to put together what I'm going to share for the morning. And it takes time for me to crack open my email, and then I have to go through all the emails and the spam. And I don't even get through all those. And then I have to copy, decipher whether it's meant for all of you or not. And then I copy it, paste it into my notes. And then by the time I'm done that, I don't even know how long that takes. Then I have to come in here and let it rip. So it takes for a while for me to open up all my email, and then I got to type in the search in so many different places. Oh, it's tough, but I do it because everybody needs to be heard. I feel bad. I feel bad about because you know, it takes a lot of guts for a lot of people to come forward, right? It takes a lot of guts, and you've got to respect that and make sure they get heard. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people, they're so insecure being a human herd animal, not by choice. And you got to think of how much possible debating goes on in their head whether or not this is the right thing to do. I'm not saying everybody. I'll bet there's a handful of people that fit this category, and then they finally write it out. They finally send it to me, and no reply, no nothing. And then all of a sudden, it probably, possibly smacks him in the face with, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done it. He's not going to share it, or he doesn't believe me, or whatever, right? It's just not the case. It's just not the case. There's just so many. And all of you have emailed them to so many different places, right? Bit of a babble there, but something I needed to share, right? Something I needed to share. Now, on that note, what do I got? I got any screenshots in my inbox that I need to get rid of. I think I'm caught up in those, I hope. Hold on a minute, you guys. Oh, here's one. Here's a screenshot in my photo album. Regarding the man that saw the Sasquatch and then said, bracket, I'm not dealing with this shit, end bracket, and went to bed. The night I saw, the night I saw the first one I ever saw in Huntsville, Texas. By the time I went to bed that night, I had forgotten. I woke up the next morning to get to the airport. Did not even recall that I had seen a Sasquatch until I came home, back to Massachusetts. It is the most bizarre thing in the world. I don't understand how that can happen. But that is what I recall from the night and the following morning. I mean, within an hour of seeing the Sasquatch, that Sasquatch, run across the width of a 2-lane road in 3 strides. By the end of the night, we were around the campfire, and it wasn't even a thought in my mind. So it must be something they do to us. For thousands of people to experience the same thing after they have a sighting. There you go. Don't know where that came from, but hell is that point made, right? How? It all obviously everything's tying into each other, but there's just something going on. It's going on around us 24/7, somewhere near us 24/7, and it's just out of sight, out of touch for so many of us. I can't even put a name on it, but something very odd to us is going on, right? Something really, really odd with energy. Some sort of parallel existence, some kind of existence right around us that we are just not built to see or know. Listen to me trying to figure out shit, and then I try to put those thoughts in my head out my lips smoothly. Good luck, right? But anyway, there you go. I got to carry on with my day. Excuse me. You know, and another side note, there's a lot of places online that have a lot less of an audience than my channel, and they've got teams of people doing everything. 3 to 4 or 5 people helping them get this shit out that I'm doing all by myself. And it's very, I'm not complaining. I got no complaints. But the only complaint I have is I wish I had 5 lifetimes on the go at the same time. That's it. But I have, like I said, I think I sent out 8 emails. I made another email for them. What did I say? I didn't even remember the email I made. let's talk or something. How to hunt. Sent it. People got one reply. The guy thought it was a hoax and started calling me names and shit, which is pretty funny. But I don't know if that email went and everybody's spam or what, but no replies. Kind of weird, right? But what I'm getting at is I enjoy having someone on here with me talking to me, just having a bullshit session. You guys can listen in on it, especially hunters. Especially hunters from my backyard, but I don't give a shit. I'll talk to anybody from anywhere. It's just as interesting. But it is fun for me, interesting for me when I'm talking to someone that knows exactly where I'm talking. And I have, I probably got hundreds of people I've listed as look into, to email them, see if they want to come on here. And then I got to get that email out. I got to go out of my way to find their email, crack open the email, make the email, send it to them. Then I got to go over that other email, try to find replies, reply to them, and then line up a time and a date to do it. And holy shit, it's actually a lot more difficult than you would think. Funny, right? But anyway, I will definitely get going on this, or hopefully maybe Sarah wants to do that when she gets back. We'll see. But I'm definitely going to, I want to pick it up on getting some people to come and talk with me on here. It's easy, especially because it's truth and it's not entertainment and nobody gives a shit what anybody thinks. It's so easy just to bullshit and talk about truth and have everybody listen, right? So, there you go. A little ramble-bamble this morning. But I'm going to get ripping. I felt a vibration in my truck, I think. A slight one. Yesterday and the day before. So I'm going to pull the shop in. I don't know why I do everything myself. I'm going to go underneath, crawl under that damn thing and try to find out what the hell's going on. What's going on? Well, it's pissing rain outside, and I think Miss Sarah might be coming home tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. I think I'm getting text now. But anyway, share my story at howtohunt.com. Get it to me, all right? Get me the truth. Get the world the truth. Just get it out. It's easy. It's painless. It actually helps. I should be back tomorrow.